Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to this Smarta Energy's overview of the UK energy market and sustainability initiatives for public sector schools, colleges and universities. So, welcome to our webinar on the UK energy market and sustainability initiatives. Today, we aim to provide you with a comprehensive understanding of the current energy landscape, the changes expected in the coming years, and how these changes might impact your institutions. We'll also explore funding opportunities for sustainability projects. We'll guide you through creating plans for on-site generation and introduce you to Smarta Energy. Additionally, we'll discuss the importance of engaging students in energy education and behaviour change initiatives. And by the end of this session, you'll have actionable insights and strategies to navigate the evolving energy market and enhance your school's sustainability efforts. Finally, we'll conclude with a summary of key points and open the floor for questions. We encourage you to ask questions, not to answer, that would probably be my job, and share your thoughts. And we look forward to supporting your sustainability journey. So, no talking at the back of class. Make sure your pencils are sharpened and all your phones are away, and we'll kick off. So today's session is all about empowering schools to take control of their energy future. We'll begin by exploring why energy understanding and management are more critical than ever, especially in the face of rising costs and climate commitments. We'll then look ahead with an energy landscape forecast for where we are now over the next few years, up to 2028, helping you anticipate change and opportunities. We'll dive into current market movements and how they're impacting schools like yours, before guiding you through practical steps to manage your school's energy journey. You'll also gain clarity on what net zero actually means to you and how to achieve it. Next, we'll cover funding options to support your energy projects and introduce Smarta's role in helping schools succeed. And finally, we'll bring it all to life with a case study from a school in Coventry and then wrap up with your questions. So firstly, an introduction, as you may not know who we are. Smarta Energy and Smarta Water are dedicated partners to the UK public and private sector, offering expert support to help organisations like yours or businesses manage their utilities more effectively and sustainably. Smarta Energy works closely with schools, councils and healthcare providers to reduce energy consumption, lower carbon emissions and support progress towards net zero. Our services span the full energy journey, from analysing usage and identifying savings to implementing low carbon technologies and tracking environmental impact. Smarta Water complements this by delivering efficient, transparent water and wastewater services across England and Scotland. Our offering includes smart metering, leak detection, water saving technologies and simplified billing, all designed to help organisations and businesses reduce waste and improve operational efficiencies. Both services are fully aligned with public sector procurement frameworks, making it easy for institutions to engage with us. Together, Smarta Energy and Smarta Water provide a joined-up, knowledgeable and practical approach to utility management that supports long-term sustainability goals. So let's kick this off. Why energy understanding and management matter? So if we have a look at the big picture, the way we think about energy in school, it needs to change. For a long time, energy has been treated as a fixed operational cost, something you pay, monitor occasionally, and try to reduce when budgets are tight. But in today's landscape, energy is no longer just a line item. It's a strategic lever, one that directly impacts your budgets, compliance objections, and long-term resilience. Why? Because the energy market is a volatile, policy-driven, and tied to environmental performance. Prices shift with global events, carbon targets drive legislation, and funding is increasingly linked to demonstrable sustainability actions. Schools sit at the intersection of all of this, with large energy-hungry estates, long-term planning cycles, and the pressure to model climate responsibly. And that means understanding the energy landscape isn't just a job for utilities managers. It's a critical part of financial strategy, risk management, and educational leadership. Let me give you an example. A school that passively renews its energy contract every year may be missing opportunities to lock in lower rates, reduce emissions, or access government support. Whereas on the other hand, a school that understands the direction of travel from gas all the way through to renewables, from reactive to proactive, can plan investments, access capital, and reduce operating costs year on year. But this goes beyond savings. Schools are asked to lead by example, whether that's reaching net zero, embedding sustainability into the curriculum, or reducing carbon emissions from public buildings. Understanding and managing energy is now a part of what it means to run a modern, responsible school. So we're not just going to talk about market stats and funding schemes, although we will be diving into that in a lot more detail, but we're here to frame energy as a strategic asset, one that, when managed correctly, can unlock funding, future-proof budgets, and support your school's environmental and educational goals. So we'll start with a view of the market, and obviously not going to read through this verbatim. All of these slides, just to let you know, will be available on our website as a video to go back and rewatch this. So you can always pause and have a look at some of the detail. But now we've had a look at why energy matters so much to your estate, let's have a look at what's coming down the road, because if you know where the market's going, then you can plan a bit smarter. So between now and 2028, the UK energy market is expecting to undergo some critical changes. All of them have direct implications for schools in terms of costs, risks, and opportunities. So firstly, if we think about energy security, the UK is ramping up its gas storage capacity. Now, that doesn't sound too exciting, but it's a really big deal. The more storage we have means that we're better protected from sudden price spikes caused by things like extreme weather or geopolitical shocks. For schools, that translates into fewer budget surprises if you're on the right procurement strategy. Next is LNG, or liquefied natural gas. And the market's opening up here with more suppliers entering and competing globally. That competition is expected to drive prices down, which could make energy cheaper, but only for those who are positioned to take advantage. Timing, contractual structure, and visibility will be key here. Policy, the government isn't just encouraging clean energy, it's legislating for it. Carbon pricing is becoming stricter, meaning higher cost for fossil fuels, and new regulations are being introduced to phase out high emission energy sources altogether. Schools that invest early in low carbon systems will not only avoid future penalties, but they'll likely benefit from grant opportunities and a more predictable cost base. It's not just about the energy market, though. Economic factors like inflation and interest rates are also key here. They'll influence everything from the cost of electricity to the viability of capital projects like solar or heat pumps. And this is where sustainability and finance really meet. If rates rise, schools may need to act sooner rather than later to secure affordable funding or lock in long-term contracts. And finally, as we all know, technology, it's accelerating, it's everywhere. And advances in things like energy storage, smart monitoring, and automation are no longer just for high-tech firms. They're increasingly accessible, and schools can leverage them to improve control, reduce waste, and create a more resilient estate. So what does that mean for you? Well, the next few years will be full of risk, as they always are, but also opportunity. And if you understand these shifts, if you understand what's happening in our market, then you can make informed decisions to protect your budget, to support your sustainability goals, and position your school as a leader in energy strategy. This is really a bit of a call to action to move from reactive to proactive. And if that shift's done well, you can deliver not only savings, but long-term stability and a positive impact for your entire school community. So let's talk about what's happening right now in the energy market, and more importantly, what that means for your school. So the Ofgem price cap, it's a headline issue at the moment. It's resetting again. And while it technically applies for domestic tariffs, like your one at home, many schools, especially those on deemed or variable contracts, are going to feel that ripple effect. And that could just be the tip of the iceberg. What's really important to understand is that volatility is being driven by a much bigger set of forces. For example, European gas storage, as we've just spoke about, the levels are significantly lower than last year, and that's a red flag for winter pricing. If we get a cold snap or geopolitical disruption, prices could spike again, and schools on a flexible or a short-term contract will be exposed to that spike. And then there's LNG, again, as we've just spoke about. Japan's reserves are low and they're buying really aggressively, and that drives up prices for everyone else, including us here in the UK. So even if your school isn't directly importing LNG, you'll still be affected by that global tug of war for supply. And then there's policy and regulation. Carbon pricing is tightening, And that means fossil fuel heavy energy contracts are going to get more expensive. So if your school is still reliant on gas heating or hasn't switched onto a renewable tariff, then you could see costs rise, not only because of usage, but because of the emissions penalties baked into that supply chain. And then finally, technology factor. The schools that are investing in smart control, battery storage, solar PV are starting to insulate themselves and give themselves some energy independence away from that volatility. They're generating when prices are high, they're storing it when it's cheap, and then they're using data to make the smarter decisions. The message for this slide is don't just watch the price cap, look at the bigger picture, because the schools that understand these wider market movements and act on them are the ones that will protect their budgets, they'll reduce their risk, and they'll stay ahead of that curve. So if we were to look at this as a kind of diagram in terms of managing your energy's journey, it all starts with procurement. Most schools can make immediate gains just by switching to a green tariff or renegotiating contracts at better rates. And if you're unsure where to start, speak to your procurement team or an energy consultant like ourselves. And don't forget, buying 100% renewable electricity is often cost neutral now. A good procurement decision sets the tone for your whole journey, and that can cover off all sorts of things like power purchase agreements, fixed contracts, utilizing flex within a multi-academy trust. There's many different strategies to meet many different needs, and my advice on that procurement is ensure that you're in the right place. I just noticed the NT there. Number 2 would be energy audit. So next, conduct an audit. It doesn't need to be expensive. You can use smart meters if you have them in place, staff observations. The Department for Education has an energy efficiency guide that you can download off the website that helps you understand where energy is being lost. Usually heating and lighting are the 2 main ones. A really good audit should give you a top 10 list of actions and a carbon baseline to build from them. Number 3 would be to prioritize efficiency measures. So before you start thinking about solar panels, we really advise tackle the basics. Swapping to LED lighting, installing timings on heaters, and insulating pipework can often pay for themselves in under a year. So a really quick return on investment. You can apply for Salix interest-free loans or government funding to support that work. But you really must have a fabric first approach, which we'll talk about a little bit later. And that means that radiators, pipework, the basics are done before you start looking at replacing boilers, because that can oftentimes kick out your application. We'll cover that in a moment though. Step 4 would be on-site renewable generation. So if you're ready for the renewables, solar PV is the most common, especially where energy use matches daylight hours. For this, you'd start by doing a roof survey, you check for shading, you could consider battery storage or EV chargers if budget allows, and there's also new funding through the Great British Energy Solar Programme. Schools with south-facing roofs, for example, and minimal shading will get a really good return on investment for solar. So if that's you and you haven't had a look into that, then I would strongly suggest doing so. Finally, embed a culture of sustainability. Bring your school community on that journey. Students and staff can help to monitor meters, run switch-off campaigns, suggest improvements, make energy part of your assemblies, your lesson, and your free eco-school strategy, if you will. You can do things like nominate energy champions, who might be a student or a staff member who really leads your behavioural campaigns. And savings will oftentimes come from simple habit change, so don't overlook those ones. So we've talked a lot about energy strategy and what's going on in the market, but if we were to bring it back to net zero, what does that really mean for schools, and how do you actually get there? So net zero is one of those terms. It's around everywhere at the moment, but in simple terms, it means reducing your greenhouse gas emissions as much as possible, and then offsetting what's left through either carbon removal or verified credits. Here's the part that matters most for schools. The government is committed to achieving net zero by 2050, and public sector bodies, including education, are expected to lead that transition. Now, schools are high visibility, high consumption sites. From heating large buildings to running IT suites and kitchens, energy use adds up really fast. And that means that schools have both a carbon footprint to manage and an opportunity to make a visible impact. But getting to net zero isn't about overnight transformation. It's about building a practical phased plan. You start this plan by understanding your baseline. Where are your emissions coming from? And typically a mix of electricity, gas heating, and transportation. Then set clear, achievable goals. Now, you may not electrify your entire estate tomorrow, but you can start by doing the basics, retrofitting some lighting this year, installing solar panels next year, and then maybe looking at heat pump within a 5-year window. The point to that is that progress will always beat perfection, okay? And don't allow the fact that the job seems too big to paralyze those very first steps. After that, you can think about engagement. Net zero, it's not just an estate issue, it's a whole school opportunity. And involving staff and students in the process doesn't just raise awareness, but it builds momentum. Green teams, sustainability champions, and curriculum links can all turn net zero from a top-down mandate into a shared school mission. And don't forget about data, that's really key. Real-time monitoring, energy audits, and benchmarking are critical tools for understanding impact and proving progress. These insights will help you access funding, justify investment, and track your journey over time. So the key takeaway on this slide, achieving net zero isn't just about compliance. It's about resilience, reputation, and long-term saving. It helps protect your budget from rising energy prices. It aligns with Ofsted's growing sustainability expectation and positions your school as a leader in climate responsibility. We'll move on to funding now. So how would you pay for all this, essentially? Energy upgrades, net zero targets, new technologies, they all sound great, but every school leader will be thinking the same. Where's this money coming from? Now, the good news is that there is a growing ecosystem of funding options available, specifically for schools and the wider public sector. And right now, that ecosystem is more active and more aligned with education than ever before. If we would start with Salix financing, but probably a body that you've all heard of. Salix will offer interest-free loans to schools and colleges for energy efficiency projects, from LED lighting to solar panels to BMS or building management systems upgrades. The key advantage is repayments are made from the savings that are generated and not your existing budget. So it's almost cash flow neutral. And the application process is really well supported as well. There's then the public sector decarbonisation scheme, which is one of the biggest grant schemes for capital carbon reduction projects. This is funding that you don't have to repay, but it's really, really competitive. Projects need to be shovel ready and supported by a robust feasibility plan. To help schools prepare, there's also the Low Carbon Skills Fund, also from Salix. Now, this is a separate pot that funds energy audits, technical surveys, and heat decarbonisation plans. Exactly what you need to apply successfully to the public sector decarbonisation scheme. So a good way of thinking of it is that the Low Carbon Skills Fund will fund the plan. The public sector decarbonisation scheme will fund the delivery, and then Salix loans or other schemes like the Renewable Rewards scheme, which we'll get into, can top up or run in parallel. So you don't just need to use one. Many schools combine them to great effect to unlock larger projects and cover both immediate and long-term goals. If we have a look at funding types, what's really important here is to understand the difference between grants and loans, and more importantly, who's offering what. As I said, this will be on the website, on our website afterwards, so you can always pause this and make a note afterwards. So yeah, who's offering what? That really shapes everything from how quickly you can act to how much risk your school is taking on. Grants like those from the public sector decarbonisation scheme are fantastic because they don't need to be repaid, but they're really competitive and you need to be ready with a solid plan. Loans like those from Salix are interest-free and repaid through savings, which makes them a great option for projects with a clear payback. That's why I've broken this down into a comparison table. You'll be able to see almost a bit of a cheat sheet, if you will. It tells you who the funders are, what they cover, how repayment works, and how long that might typically take. One thing I'd really encourage is to think strategically. Don't just chase the biggest pot of money. Think about what's right for your school estate, your timeline, and your capacity to be able to deliver that. Don't be afraid to stack funding, as we've said. You can combine a Salix loan with a PSDS grant, or you can use the Renewable Rewards Scheme to top up a solar project. There's all different ways that this can be manoeuvred around. If we have a look at some of the most common reasons as to why people may get rejected for these grants or loans. Firstly, weak or an incomplete business case. Now, applications will be refused if they lack clear data on energy savings, payback period, or they fail to link the project to measurable outcomes like carbon reduction. The way around this is to use consumption data, not estimates, include baseline versus projected savings with a simple return on investment or payback, and link outcomes to the DFE net zero strategy or any ESOS compliance where possible. No prior energy efficiency measures in place. So many schemes require applicants to address low cost, high impact changes like LED or insulation before going for big ticket upgrades like heat pumps or solar. So if you're going to go for a heat pump, remember this term that we spoke about before, fabric first, which basically means that you need to ensure that the pipe works are insulated, the radiators are up to standard and won't be losing a load of heat. So that work will need to be doing before you look at a specific boiler replacement or include it within the measures that you're going for. It could be poor value for money, another reason why things are refused, and that could be that the project's cost per tonne of CO2 saved is too high, or the quotes appeared inflated. Obviously, using the frameworks like Crown Commercial Service will be able to will show benchmarking, so you can get multiple quotes. Bundle smaller measures with larger ones to improve the overall value ratio, and emphasize co-benefits like reduced maintenance or safeguard comfort. There could be a lack of strategic fit or senior buy-in, and that's where the proposal appears almost isolated with no long-term plan or leadership support behind it. A way around that is to show that the project fits into your wider sustainability or estates plan. You could include a brief statement of support from the SLT, the senior leadership team, or governors, and maybe mention curriculum links or community benefits if that's relevant to the specific case. There could be some missed technical requirements or deadlines, another reason why things get rejected. Simple but common. Schools, like students and ourselves, do miss deadlines. They could submit outdated forms or fail to include required technical assessments like heat loss surveys or DC ratings. So a number of reasons around avoidable mistakes there. Now, we spoke about it on the last slide, the Renewable Rewards Scheme, which may be a new term for some of you on the call here, but essentially the Renewable Rewards Scheme is a key initiative from ourselves, Smarta Energy, that incentivises schools to adopt renewable energy systems. Schools can apply for the scheme by submitting a detailed proposal that outlines the planned renewable energy system and its expected impact. Successful applicants receive funding and support to implement the project, along with ongoing monitoring and reporting to track the progress of that project. So the scheme is designed to encourage schools to invest in renewable energy systems such as solar panels and heat pumps, but also some of those lower ticket items as well. By generating renewable energy on site, schools can look to reduce their reliance on grid, so it ends up protecting you from some of those risks that we spoke about earlier in the webinar. How it works, it's fairly simple. The innovative model, easy for me to say, is an interest-free cash rebate underwritten by the Smarta Utilities Group and embedded into the unit rate of your forward energy contract to invest an impactful energy solution, such as metering, heat pumps, CHP, solar PV, whatever the case may be. The roadmap on this slide again demonstrates the process of application through to repayment, but it's a very simple USP that we have that's very popular within the public sector. Let's bring to life how all of this has worked with a case study from a school in Coventry that many of you may relate to. So this was a well-established, high-performing school, but like many others, they were seeing their electricity bills creep up year on year, and they weren't sure how or why, or more importantly, should I say, they didn't know where to start fixing that. So they began with something simple but powerful, and that was smart metering. Electricity, gas and water all monitored in real time. That gave them visibility, and once they had that data, Smarta commissioned a high-level energy survey to pinpoint exactly where the inefficiencies were, things like outdated heating controls, lighting was being left on overnight, and there was poor insulation in certain blocks of the school. So this is where it actually gets interesting. So the school didn't just want to cut costs, although that was a real driver for them, but they wanted to embed energy awareness into their culture. They saw this as a teaching opportunity and not just a technical fix. So they looked for a funding model that could support both the infrastructure and the engagement side, and that's where our Renewable Rewards framework came in. The result of that was a fully customized solution that tackled their immediate energy challenges while also setting them up for long-term sustainability. Perhaps most importantly, it gave them a platform to involve students. So they now use smart meter data in lessons, they run energy saving campaigns and have student energy champions who help monitor that usage. And that's a really good point. That leads me nicely into energy education. I mean, engaging student in energy education and behavioural change initiatives is crucial for fostering a culture of sustainability. Schools can implement programs that teach students about energy conservation, renewable energy, and the importance of reducing carbon emissions. Involving students in energy-saving projects such as monitoring energy use and implementing conservation measures can have a significant impact. These initiatives not only reduce energy consumption, but also enhance students' understanding of sustainability and their role in protecting the environment. Energy education programs, like we said, they can be integrated into the curriculum, providing students with hands-on learning experiences. So I think that's where we will take some questions and takeaways. Now, this being our pilot scheme, hopefully I do have someone on side that may let me know if there are any questions coming through, because I'm not sure I can see LinkedIn at this moment. So if you have a question, feel free to ask it, and hopefully I'll hear it, or hopefully someone back at the office may be able to translate that for me. I'm going to take that silence and the fact that I'm not getting a message pop up as there may not be any questions, which means that I've either done a wonderful job explaining everything, or our technical systems may have let us down. Who knows? We'll wrap up. And as I said, if there are any questions or you'd like a further conversation, then please reach out to me on LinkedIn or through the Smarta Energy website. There is some details here on the final slide in terms of my email address and phone number. But in conclusion, today's webinar, I hope, has provided a comprehensive overview of the UK energy market, upcoming changes, and strategies for schools to protect themselves against these changes. We've had a look and explored funding opportunities for sustainability projects. We've guided you through creating plans for on-site energy generation and introduced you to smarter energy and water. But we've also discussed the importance of engaging students and in energy education and behavioural change initiatives. By implementing these strategies, schools can achieve significant energy savings, reduce their carbon footprint, and enhance their sustainability efforts. So I'll thank you for joining us today. And as I said, if there are any questions or you would like to reach out and get in touch, my details are on the screen there. Thanks for taking part, and hopefully hear from you very soon.